Why was she already bleeding before anyone even realized the mission had gone wrong? They found her in the dust, kneeling over a soldier whose life was slipping through her fingers second by second. Her left shoulder was torn open, soaked deep red, but she didn't look at it. She had already made that decision 47 minutes earlier. Pain was irrelevant. Timing was everything. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing gauze into the man's chest. Her voice didn't shake. It never did when it mattered. The helicopter was still minutes away. The battlefield had gone quiet in that unsettling way, not peaceful, just finished. The kind of silence that follows chaos, like the world itself is catching its breath. She knew his name. She always knew their names. That was her rule. Because when someone looked at her the way he was looking now, eyes searching, not for hope, but for truth, they deserved to hear it. "You're not done yet," she said, firm. "That's an order." But there was something she hadn't told them. Not yet. 72 hours earlier, she had been nothing more than the medic who shouldn't be here. Fob Kestrel sat in the valley like an afterthought, walls of sand and steel pressed against mountains that didn't care if they lived or died. The kind of place where judgment came fast and respect came slow. When Maya Reeves stepped off the helicopter, no one said anything. But they thought it. Too small, too quiet, too calm. Staff Sergeant Briggs watched her walk past and muttered, "Wrong person, wrong war." She heard it. She just didn't respond. Inside the medical station, she saw the problem immediately. Everything was arranged neatly, alphabetically, clean, orderly. Useless. She didn't complain, she just fixed it. Tourniquets where hands could reach without thinking. Gauze where seconds wouldn't be wasted searching. Every item placed not for comfort, but for survival. She worked in silence. Because proving people wrong doesn't require words. It requires time. The first test came quietly. A young Marine, barely holding himself upright, tried to walk off what his body was already losing. Heat stroke. Severe. Maya didn't ask questions, she acted. Ice, oxygen, pressure, calm voice. 10 minutes later, he was alive because she had been faster than his collapse. Briggs noticed. He didn't say anything. But something shifted. The second test came in the dark. A man gasping for air, chest injury, panic rising. Maya moved without hesitation. Needle, angle, precision. Air escaped. The man breathed again. No drama, no celebration. Just quiet competence. From the corner, Gunny Olsen watched. He had seen people like her before. Not many. The ones who didn't perform skill, they became it. And that's when he started paying attention. The third moment wasn't supposed to matter. It was just a training range. A missed shot at 400 meters, wind correction ignored, a small mistake. Maya spoke without thinking. 2 clicks up, hold right. The Marine tried it. Bullseye. Silence followed. Because suddenly, the medic wasn't just a medic. She walked away like nothing had happened. But something had. Later, alone in the rifle station, she saw it. The weapon she had promised never to touch again. Her hand moved toward it before her mind could stop it. Then it froze. She stepped back. Walked away. Because some promises don't fade. Even when they hurt. Especially when they hurt. But someone had seen her. And now the questions had begun. Why did the commander look at her like she already knew something no one else did? The mission briefing was tight, precise, unforgiving. High-value target, mountain compound, limited extraction window. Everything about it screamed risk. Maya stood outside the room, listening through the thin barrier. She told herself it was for preparation, medical positioning, casualty planning. That was true. Just not the whole truth. Because part of her was listening for something else. Something deeper. Something familiar. When the team moved out that night, the cold didn't bother her. The weight on her back didn't either. She had carried heavier things. Things no one could see. The approach was clean. Until it was. The first shot cracked through the air like a warning too late to matter. A Marine dropped. Maya was already moving. Blood tourniquet pressure. Stabilize. The second shot hit closer. Now everyone understood. Sniper. High ground, Western Ridge. 750 meters. Too far, too exposed. Their marksman was down, shoulder compromised. And for a moment, no one moved. Because everyone was waiting for someone else to solve it. That's when the commander looked at her. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. Maya stood. Walked to the rifle. Picked it up. It was heavier than anything she had used before. But weight wasn't the problem. Memory was. She settled into position. Breathed. Calculated. Wind, distance, elevation. First shot missed. A small shift. But enough. Someone behind her muttered. Doubt. She ignored it. Read the wind again. Adjusted. Waited for the space between heartbeats. Fired. Silence followed. Different this time. Because the threat was gone. She set the rifle down. Went back to the wounded. Like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. No one spoke on the way back. Because some things don't need discussion. They need understanding. And that takes time. Where does someone learn to stay that calm when everything is falling apart? The question lingered in everyone's mind. But no one asked it. Except one. Where did you learn that? Marsh finally said. Maya didn't hesitate. My father. That was all. But it wasn't enough. Because there was more. Much more. It came out days later. In pieces. Through someone who had been there. Through someone who had seen it. Her father hadn't died randomly. He had chosen. A canyon, a trap, a moment where everything felt wrong. He saw it. Too late to avoid. But early enough to act. He sent his team forward. Stayed behind. Absorbed the ambush. Saved 7 lives. Lost his own. And before it happened, he left a message. Tell her I knew what I was doing. 8 years. It took 8 years for that message to reach her. Maya didn't cry. She just held it. Like something fragile. Like something heavy. Because grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Still. Permanent. That night she sat alone. Thinking. About stillness. About control. About the space between action and consequence. Because now she understood. She wasn't just carrying his memory. She was continuing his choice. How do you become both the one who saves lives and the one who takes them? The next mission demanded it. Bigger, riskier, no margin for hesitation. 31 personnel. 3 teams. 1 objective. Everything aligned perfectly. Until the ground exploded. The blast hit like a shockwave through reality itself. Maya didn't think. She moved. 1 casualty breathing. Another bleeding out. Tourniquet pressure, orders. Calm voice. Always calm. Because panic spreads faster than fire. And she refused to let it spread. Around her, chaos unfolded. But inside her, there was stillness. The kind her father taught her. The kind built over years. The kind you don't notice until everything else is falling apart. She moved from one life to another. fixing what she could, holding what she couldn't, and somewhere in between, she became something more. Not a medic, not a shooter, both at the same time, because sometimes survival doesn't give you a choice. It just gives you responsibility. Why did she collapse after everything was already over? The mission ended. Extraction complete. Everyone accounted for. Back inside the wire. Safe. That's when it happened. Maya stood in the medical station. Hands steady. Voice calm. Then suddenly, she fell. No warning. No drama. Just gone. Exhaustion, blood loss, everything she had ignored finally catching up. For a moment, no one moved, because they had never seen her like that. Weak. Human. They carried her carefully, like she had carried all of them. And in that quiet room, something changed again. Respect. Not loud. Not spoken. But real. Because strength isn't about never falling. It's about everything you did before you did. Why did 500 Marines stand in silence when she finally woke up? She didn't remember being moved. Didn't remember collapsing. Only fragments. Pain, voices, darkness. Then light. She opened her eyes slowly. Confused. Disoriented. And then she saw them. Rows of Marines. Standing. Perfectly still. Saluting. Not for rank. Not for orders. For her. Maya didn't know what to say. So she said nothing. Because some moments don't need words. They need presence. Recognition. Understanding. She had never asked for respect. Never demanded it. She had simply done her job. Again and again. Until no one could ignore it anymore. And in that moment, she realized something quiet. Something true. Courage isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait to be seen. It just acts. And sometimes, when it's finally recognized, it doesn't stand taller. It simply stands. Still. Unshaken. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply endures. Why did the commander keep watching her, even after the mission was over? The debrief room smelled like dust, metal, and something unspoken. No one sat comfortably. They never did after operations like that. Too many things lingered, decisions, seconds, near misses. Maya stood near the wall, not hiding, just not needing attention. The others spoke in fragments. Sniper neutralized. Entry point compromised. Extraction delayed by 6 minutes. Facts clean, controlled. But what no one said, what stayed suspended in the air was her. Because everyone had seen it. The moment she stepped forward. The moment she picked up that rifle. The moment everything shifted. Colonel Hayes leaned back slightly, eyes steady on her. Not aggressive, not approving. Just searching. You've had prior weapons training, he said finally. It wasn't a question. Maya met his gaze, calm, unshaken. Yes, sir. A pause. How extensive? Another pause. Longer this time. Enough. A few heads turned. That wasn't the answer they expected. But it was the only one she gave. Because the truth wasn't simple. It wasn't a line on a record or a skill you listed in a file. It was something else. Something buried. Something she had spent years trying to leave behind. Hayes didn't push. Not yet. Noted, he said quietly. And just like that, it was over. But it was. Because now, everyone knew there was more to her than what she showed. And that kind of knowledge doesn't sit still. It grows. Outside, the wind moved across the base in low, restless waves, the kind that made everything feel temporary, like nothing here was meant to last. Maya walked alone toward the far end of the compound, past the tents, past the noise, toward the quiet, because quiet was the only place where things made sense, or at least where they made less noise. She sat on an empty crate, hands resting loosely on her knees. Her shoulder ached, a deep, pulsing reminder of what she had ignored. She pressed it lightly, still bleeding, just under control. Should have reported that. The voice came from behind her. She didn't turn immediately. Probably, she said. Gunny Olson stepped closer, stopping a few feet away, not invading her space, just sharing it. You always ignore your own injuries, he asked. Only when someone else's is worse. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. Yeah, he muttered, that's what I figured. Silence settled between them. Not awkward, just honest. After a moment, he spoke again. That shot, he said, 750 crosswind, you adjusted after the miss. Maya stared ahead. Yes. You don't learn that in basic. No. He nodded slowly. Your father, he said, he was military. She hesitated. Then softly. Yes. Another pause. Sniper. Her fingers tightened slightly. Yes. Olson exhaled, like something had just clicked into place. Thought so. But he didn't ask more. Didn't dig. Because some stories aren't meant to be pulled out. They're meant to be given. And Maya wasn't ready to give hers. Not fully. Not yet. That night sleep didn't come easily. It never did after missions. But this time, it wasn't the gunfire or the chaos replaying in her mind. It was something quieter. That moment, the rifle in her hands, the stillness before the shot, the memory of it, because it felt familiar. Too familiar. Like slipping into something she used to be. Something she had tried to walk away from. She turned onto her side, eyes open in the darkness. And for a second she saw him. Not clearly. Just a shape. A presence. Her father. Standing behind her. Watching. Not judging. Just there. You said you knew what you were doing, she whispered into the silence. Her voice barely existed. But did I? No answer came. Only the quiet hum of the bass around her. And the weight of a question that had no simple ending. Morning came harsh and fast. Orders didn't wait for reflection. Another patrol, another assignment, another set of risks. Maya moved through it all with the same steady rhythm. Check gear. Prep supplies. Focus. But now things were different. Subtle. Almost invisible. The way soldiers looked at her. Not dismissive anymore. Not uncertain. Measured. Respectful. And maybe a little curious. Marsh approached her near the vehicle bay, scratching the back of his neck like he wasn't sure how to start. Hey, he said. Hey. He shifted his weight. That shot yesterday. She didn't respond. Just waited. You ever think about switching roles? He asked. I mean not fully, but you know, cross-trained. Maya shook her head. No. He frowned slightly. Why not? Because I know what happens when I don't stop. But she didn't say that. Because I'm needed where I am, she replied simply. Marsh nodded, though it was clear he didn't fully understand. Most people didn't. Because from the outside, it looked like a missed opportunity. From the inside, it looked like control. And control was everything. Later that afternoon, the call came in. Urgent. Convoy hit. Multiple casualties inbound. Maya didn't think. She moved. The medical tent filled fast. Noise, movement, pressure. This was her world. This was where everything became clear. One patient at a time. One decision at a time. She worked through them with precision. No wasted motion. No hesitation. A soldier with shrapnel in his abdomen. Stabilize. Another with a fractured leg and severe blood loss. Tourniquet fluids. A third unconscious, breathing shallow. Airway monitor. Around her others moved too. But she was the center. Not because she commanded it. Because she anchored it. And in the middle of it all, someone grabbed her arm. Hard. She turned. The soldier's eyes were wide, panicked. "Don't let me die," he said, voice cracking. Maya leaned closer. Firm, steady. "You're not dying," she said. It wasn't a guess. It was a decision. And something in her voice made him believe it. Minutes passed. Then more. Until finally. Stability. Breathing normalized. Pulse steady. He was going to live. She stepped back slightly. Exhaled. And for a brief second, her hand trembled. Just a little. Just enough for her to notice. She clenched it into a fist. Stopped it. Because weakness wasn't allowed. Not here. Not now. But something had shifted again. Not outside. Inside. That line she had drawn years ago. The one between who she was and who she used to be. It was starting to blur. And she could feel it. Every time she acted without thinking. Every time instinct took over. Every time the past slipped into the present. That night she stood alone again. Same spot. Same quiet. But different thoughts. Because now the question wasn't whether she could do both. She already had. The question was, how long before she couldn't stop? How long before the part of her she buried stopped staying buried? The wind moved across the base again. Soft. Restless. Unanswered. And somewhere in that silence, something waited. Not danger. Not exactly. Something else. A moment. A choice. Still coming. Still inevitable. Why did her hands feel steady, even when her mind was? The morning started like any other. Orders, movement, routine, but something underneath it all felt off. Not loud, not obvious, just a quiet shift she couldn't explain. Maya noticed it when she reached for her gloves. Her fingers didn't hesitate. Didn't shake. Perfectly controlled. And that's what unsettled her. Because control like that didn't come from calm. It came from something deeper. Something trained. Something remembered. She slipped the gloves on anyway. Ignored it. Because missions don't wait for clarity. They demand action. The briefing came fast. Recon unit lost contact near a narrow mountain pass. Terrain unstable. Visibility limited. Possibility of ambush high. Standard risk. Unpredictable outcome. Exactly the kind of mission that didn't forgive mistakes. Maya stood at the edge of the group again, listening, absorbing, not speaking. But this time she felt the glances. Different now. Not doubt. Expectation. Like they were waiting for her to step into something she hadn't agreed to be. That bothered her more than the danger. Because expectation creates pressure. And pressure exposes cracks. They moved out within the hour. The convoy rolled slowly through the pass, engines low, tires crunching against loose gravel. The mountains pressed in from both sides, tall and indifferent. A perfect place to disappear. Or to be erased. Maya sat in the back of the second vehicle, eyes scanning without seeming to. Medical pack secure, rifle within reach. She told herself it was precaution. Nothing more. But part of her knew better. The silence stretched. Too long. Too clean. Something's wrong, Marsh muttered from the front. No one disagreed. They didn't have time to. The first explosion hit behind them. Sharp, violent, final. The third vehicle lifted slightly before crashing back down, smoke rising instantly into the narrow sky. Contact. Gunfire erupted from above. High ground. Hidden positions. Exactly where they didn't want it. Maya didn't think. She moved. Out of the vehicle, into the chaos, toward the injured. A Marine lay near the rear wheel, leg twisted unnaturally, blood spreading fast. Tourniquet. Tight. Higher. Stop the bleed. Her hands moved faster than her thoughts. Because this part of her didn't need thinking. It just knew. Another soldier stumbled toward her, clutching his side. Medic. I see you, she said, pulling him down, assessing quickly. Entry wound, no exit. Internal bleeding. Bad, but survivable. Stay with me. Her voice cut through everything. Even the gunfire. Even the fear. Because when she spoke like that, people listened. Above them, bullets cracked against metal and stone. Return fire came in bursts. Controlled. But they were pinned. And time was slipping. Sniper left ridge, someone shouted. Maya glanced up. Just for a second. That was all it took. Distance, angle, movement. Her mind calculated without permission. And something inside her aligned. Not as a medic. As something else. She looked away immediately. Back to the wounded. Because that line, that invisible line she had drawn, still mattered. Didn't it? Another explosion echoed deeper into the pass. Closer now. Too close. The situation was collapsing. And everyone felt it. Fallback position, Briggs yelled. But fallback to where? The terrain offered no cover. No advantage. Just exposure. And risk. Maya pressed down on the wound in front of her, trying to slow what couldn't be stopped forever. Listen to me, she said, locking eyes with the soldier. You're getting out of here. He tried to nod. But fear was already creeping in. She leaned closer. You don't get to quit, not here. Her words weren't soft. They weren't comforting. They were anchoring. Because hope doesn't always sound gentle. Sometimes it sounds like refusal. Behind her, footsteps rushed. Olsen dropped beside her, breathing hard. We're losing ground, he said. We need suppression or we're done. Maya didn't respond immediately. Her focus stayed on the man in front of her. Finish the bandage. Secure it. Stabilize. Only then did she look up. Toward the ridge. Toward the threat. And in that moment, she knew. No one else had the angle. No one else had the shot. The marksman from their unit was already down. And the longer that sniper stayed active, the more lives slipped away. You've got a line, Olsen asked, reading her silence. Maya swallowed. Her shoulder throbbed. Her body was already pushed past what it should handle. But that wasn't the real weight. The real weight was the decision. Because once she stepped into that role again, there was no pretending it didn't exist. No hiding from it. No separating it from who she was. I do, she said quietly. Olsen didn't hesitate. Then take it. Simple. Direct. Trust. That's what hit her the hardest. Not the danger. Not the expectation. The trust. Because trust means people believe you'll do what needs to be done, even if it costs you something. Maya reached for the rifle. This time, her hand didn't stop. She moved into position behind a broken slab of rock, steadying herself against the uneven ground. The world narrowed. Sound faded. Breathing slowed. Everything outside the scope disappeared. She found the ridge. Tracked movement. Waited. The sniper was good. Careful. Disciplined. Just like. No. She cut that thought off. Focused. Wind slight left to right. Distance longer than before. But manageable. If she didn't rush. Another shot rang out. Closer this time. A Marine cried out behind her. Time was gone. She exhaled slowly. Let the stillness take over. That familiar, dangerous stillness. The one that felt like control, but wasn't entirely hers. She fired. The recoil pushed back into her shoulder, sending a sharp pulse of pain through her body. She ignored it. Adjusted. Watched. No movement. No return fire. Silence. Different again. Because this silence meant something had ended. Maya lowered the rifle slowly. Her hand still steady. Too steady. She set it down. Turned back. Back to where she belonged. Back to the wounded. But something inside her didn't follow. It lingered there. On that ridge. In that moment. In that version of herself she couldn't fully deny anymore. The firefight eased. Not over. But controlled. Enough to move. Enough to survive. Evac was called. Time stretched again. But this time it moved forward. Not against them. Maya worked through the remaining injuries with the same relentless focus. One life at a time. One breath at a time. Until finally, the sound of helicopters broke through the mountain air. Relief. Real this time. As the wounded were loaded, as the team regrouped, as the chaos slowly settled. Maya stepped back. Just for a second. Just long enough to feel it. The exhaustion. The weight. The truth. Because now she couldn't ignore it anymore. She wasn't just reacting. She was choosing. Every time. And those choices were shaping something she didn't fully understand yet. Olsen approached her again, eyes steady. You saved more than a few today, he said. Maya shook her head slightly. We all did. He studied her for a moment. No, he said quietly, not like that. She didn't argue. Didn't agree either. Because neither felt right. That night, as the base settled into its uneasy quiet, Maya sat alone again. Same place. Same wind. But nothing felt the same. She stared out into the darkness, replaying the moment. The shot. The stillness. The part of her that didn't hesitate. And for the first time, she didn't push it away. She let it sit there. Uncomfortable. Unanswered. Because maybe the question wasn't whether she could be both. Maybe it was. What happens when both sides stop asking for permission? The wind carried no answers. Only the quiet. And the feeling that something inside her had fully awakened. Why did everything feel slower, right before it all broke apart? It started with a sound that didn't belong. Not gunfire, not movement, something deeper. A low, buried rumble beneath the earth itself, like the ground was warning them, too late to matter. Maya turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing. Wait. The explosion tore through the convoy before the word could finish. The world didn't shatter all at once. It fractured, pieces of sound, light, and force colliding out of order. The lead vehicle lifted, twisted, and slammed back down in a cloud of dust and fire. Silence followed. Not real silence. The kind where your ears ring so loud it drowns everything else out. Maya hit the ground hard, breath knocked out of her chest. For a second she couldn't move, couldn't think. Then instinct snapped back. She pushed herself up. The scene around her was chaos, smoke curling into the air, metal bent into shapes it was never meant to hold, voices distant, panicked, broken. Her heart tried to race. She didn't let it. Control. Find control. She forced a breath. Then another. And just like that, the world sharpened. Sound off, someone yelled, voice cutting through the ringing. Responses came in scattered fragments. I'm good. Hit but moving. No visual. Maya didn't wait for the full picture. She moved toward the worst of it. Because she always did. A soldier lay half under the wreckage, his arm trapped, blood pooling too fast. His face was pale, eyes wide, already slipping. I've got you, Maya said, dropping beside him. Her voice was steady. It had to be. She assessed quickly, crush injury, severe bleeding. Time wasn't just limited, it was disappearing. Olsen, she called out. He was already moving toward her, reading the situation without needing explanation. We need to lift this, she said. He nodded, grabbing the edge of the twisted metal. Another Marine joined. Together they strained against the weight. On three, Olsen said. 1, 2. They lifted. Barely enough. Maya didn't hesitate. She pulled the soldier free, dragging him clear before the metal crashed back down. Stay with me, she said, already working. Tourniquet tight. Too much blood lost. Her hands moved faster. Pressure, bandage, stabilize. The soldier's grip tightened weakly around her sleeve. Don't let me. You're not going anywhere, she cut in. Firm, absolute. Because doubt wasn't allowed. Not in her voice. Not in his mind. Around them, the firefight had already begun. The explosion wasn't random. It never was. Gunfire erupted from the ridges again. Different positions this time, closer, more aggressive. They had been funneled. Set up. And now they were exposed. Contact left and high, Briggs shouted. Return fire answered instantly. But it wasn't enough. They were pinned again. Only this time, there was less cover. And more casualties. Maya finished securing the bandage, then moved to the next. A Marine slumped against the vehicle, breathing shallow, eyes unfocused. Head injury. Dangerous. She tilted his chin, checked his airway, spoke low and steady. Stay with me, look at me. His eyes struggled to lock onto hers. Good, that's it, don't drift. She kept her voice anchored, even as bullets cracked against the wreckage behind her. Because panic spreads. But so does calm. And she had learned long ago which one kept people alive. Another explosion echoed further down the pass. Secondary charges. Planned. Everything about this was planned. And that realization hit harder than the blast. Because it meant they weren't just reacting anymore. They were already behind. Olsen, she called again. He dropped beside her, firing short, controlled bursts before reloading. We're getting boxed in, he said. We need to move or we're done. Maya glanced around. Injured everywhere. Some could move. Some couldn't. Leaving wasn't simple. It never was. How long for evac? She asked. Too long. Of course. It was always too long. Another round snapped overhead, closer than before. They were adjusting, learning, closing in. Maya's jaw tightened slightly. Time to decide. Not as a medic, as something more. She hated that part, but she understood it. You need suppression, she said. Olsen didn't argue. Yeah. She looked toward the ridge again. Different position this time. Harder angle. Less margin. But still possible. Everything in her resisted the thought. Because every time she stepped into that role, it pulled her further away from the line she had tried to hold. But every second she didn't cost someone else. That was the truth. Simple, brutal, unavoidable. She exhaled slowly. Cover me, she said. Olsen hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Not doubt. Recognition. Because now he knew exactly what she meant. Then he nodded. Go. Maya moved. Low, controlled, toward a broken section of rock that gave her a narrow view of the upper ridge. Her shoulders screamed in protest. She ignored it. Pain was background noise. Focus was everything. She reached the position, dropped down, and pulled the rifle into place. The weight settled into her hands like something familiar. Too familiar. Her breath slowed. The world narrowed again. Scope up. Vision tightened. There. Movement. A flash of fabric, a shift of shadow. The shooter was good. Patient. Waiting for the right moment. Just like her. The thought slipped in before she could stop it. She steadied her aim. Calculated. Wind was stronger now. Unpredictable. The shot would be harder. And she had one chance. Maybe two. No room for hesitation. Behind her, another Marine cried out. Closer. Running out of time. Maya adjusted slightly. Waited. Not for the perfect shot. For the possible one. There's a difference. The perfect shot gets you killed. The possible one keeps others alive. She exhaled. Fired. The recoil slammed into her already injured shoulder, pain flaring sharp and immediate. She didn't react. Didn't move. Watched. A pause. Then, the movement stopped. No return fire. No correction. Just stillness. It was enough. She lowered the rifle. Just slightly. And in that moment, everything hit her at once. The pain. The exhaustion. The weight of everything she had been holding back. Her vision blurred for a second. Just a second. But it was enough to scare her. Because she had never let it slip before. Not like that. Not in the middle of it. She blinked hard. Forced herself back. Not now. Later. There's always a later. She pushed herself up and moved back toward the others. Back to the wounded. Back to where she needed to be. Because no matter how many lines she crossed, that part of her never changed. She dropped beside the same soldier from earlier, checking his pulse. Still there. Weak. But fighting. Good, she murmured, stay with me. Her voice softened this time. Just slightly. Because sometimes strength isn't force. It's presence. Around them, the firefight began to shift. Less incoming fire. More control. They were stabilizing. Not safe. But surviving. And sometimes that's enough. Evac finally came through. Helicopters cutting through the mountain air, loud and undeniable. Relief spread, quiet but real. As the wounded were loaded, as the team regrouped, as the chaos slowly pulled back, Maya stepped away again. Just for a moment. just to breathe. But this time, her body didn't listen. The strength she had been forcing, holding, demanding. It faltered. Her knees buckled slightly. She caught herself on the edge of the vehicle. No one noticed. Or maybe they did. She wasn't sure. Her vision dimmed again. Edges darkening. Sound fading. And for the first time since it all began, she felt it. Not fear. Not exactly. Something closer to emptiness. Like everything she had pushed down was finally pushing back. "You good?" Marsh's voice came from somewhere nearby. She nodded automatically. "Yeah." A lie. Simple. Necessary. Because there was still work to do. Still people who needed her steady. Still moments that demanded everything she had left. So she straightened. Forced her body forward. One step. Then another. Ignoring the warning signs. Ignoring the weight. Ignoring herself. Because that's what she had always done. And it had always worked. Until it didn't. Until something inside her finally said, "Enough." The helicopter doors slammed shut. The noise rose. The ground fell away beneath them. And Maya stood there, surrounded by the lives she had helped hold together. While her own strength quietly, invisibly, began to fall apart. Why did no one notice the exact moment she stopped holding herself together? The helicopter ride back felt longer than it should have been. Not because of distance. Because of everything packed inside it. Pain, silence, breathing, waiting. Maya sat on the cold metal floor back against the wall, hands resting loosely in her lap. Around her, the wounded filled every available space, some conscious, some barely holding on. She kept her eyes on them. Always on them. Because as long as she focused outward, she didn't have to look inward. A soldier across from her groaned, shifting slightly as the medic beside him adjusted a bandage. Blood had soaked through again. Maya noticed immediately. Of course she did. She leaned forward, already reaching for fresh gauze. "I've got it," the other medic said quickly, almost instinctively. Maya paused. Just for a second. Then nodded. "Okay." She leaned back again. Hands returning to her lap. Still. Useless. The feeling was unfamiliar. And she didn't like it. Because she had always been the one who moved. The one who fixed. The one who acted. Now she was sitting still. And the world didn't stop. It kept going. Without her. The helicopter jolted slightly, turbulence cutting through the airframe. No one reacted. They were too used to worse. Maya's head tilted back, eyes closing for just a moment. Just a second to breathe. But when she opened them again, something felt off. The edges of her vision were darker. Narrower. Like the world was closing in from the sides. She blinked. Once. Twice. It didn't clear. Her hand lifted slowly to her shoulder. The one she had ignored. The one still bleeding beneath layers of makeshift care. Her fingers pressed lightly against it. Warm. Too warm. She pulled her hand back. Blood. Not a lot. But enough. Enough when combined with everything else. Fatigue. Shock. Everything she had pushed aside. "You should have treated that sooner." The voice wasn't real. Not here. Not now. But she heard it anyway. Clear. Calm. Familiar. Her father. Or at least, the version of him she carried. Maya swallowed, eyes fixed on the floor. "I didn't have time," she whispered under her breath. The noise of the helicopter swallowed her words. But inside her mind, the answer came anyway. You made time for everyone else. Her jaw tightened slightly. Because that was true. It had always been true. And it had always been the problem. Across from her, the soldier she had stabilized earlier looked at her now. Really looked. Concern flickering across his face. You okay? He asked. Simple question. Hard answer. Maya nodded. Yeah. Another lie. But this one felt weaker. He didn't push. Most of them didn't. Because they trusted her. And trust sometimes means believing what you're told, even when it isn't true. The helicopter began its descent. The base coming into view below. Safe ground. Familiar walls. An ending. Or at least, something that looked like one. Maya shifted slightly, preparing to stand. Her body didn't respond the way she expected. A delay. Small, but noticeable. She pushed anyway. Forced it. Because stopping wasn't an option. Not yet. The moment the helicopter touched down, everything moved fast again. Doors open. Commands shouted. Stretchers lifted. Controlled urgency. Maya stepped out with the others, boots hitting solid ground. For a second, relief washed over her. They made it. They were alive. That should have been enough. But her body didn't register relief the same way her mind did. Because it wasn't running on relief. It was running on empty. She followed the stretchers toward the medical station, keeping pace, eyes scanning, ready to step in. Except she didn't. Not this time. Other medics took over. More hands. Fresh energy. They didn't need her. And that realization hit harder than the exhaustion. Because if they didn't need her, what was holding her up? She slowed slightly. Just enough to fall a step behind. Then another. No one noticed. Or maybe they did. But everything was moving too fast to stop. Inside the medical tent, controlled chaos took over. Orders, movement, focus. Lives being pulled back from the edge. Maya stood near the entrance. Watching. Not moving. Her breathing felt different. Shallower. Like her body had forgotten the rhythm. In. Out. In. It hit her suddenly. A wave. Not pain. Not fear. Something else. Heavier. Deeper. Like everything she had been carrying finally decided to settle all at once. Her vision blurred again. Voices around her stretched and warped slightly, like they were coming from too far away. She blinked. Tried to focus. Tried to ground herself. But the ground didn't feel steady anymore. Maya. Someone said her name. Close. Concerned. She turned her head slightly. Olsen. Of course it was Olsen. He always noticed. You're bleeding, he said, eyes locking onto her shoulder. She followed his gaze. Like she hadn't already known. It's nothing, she replied. Automatic. But her voice didn't sound like hers. It sounded distant. Flat. Wrong. Olsen stepped closer. It's not nothing. She opened her mouth to argue. To brush it off. To stay in control. But the words didn't come. Because control was slipping. Vast. And for the first time, she couldn't grab it back. Her knees weakened. Just slightly. But enough. Olsen reached out, catching her arm before she could fully fall. Maya. I'm fine, she tried again. But this time, even she didn't believe it. Her grip on his sleeve tightened. Not out of strength, out of necessity, because the world was tilting now, shifting, fatting at the edges. You don't get to decide that right now, Olson said firmly. His voice grounded, steady, the way hers always had been. But she couldn't hold on to it. Not anymore. Her legs gave out. No warning this time. No chance to stop it. One moment she was standing. The next, nothing. Darkness didn't rush in. It crept. Slow. Inevitable. Like a curtain being drawn. The last thing she felt wasn't fear. It wasn't panic. It wasn't even regret. It was silence. A quiet she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. A stillness she had avoided. And as everything slipped away, there was one final thought. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just honest. Who am I when I'm not the one holding everyone else together? And then, even that question disappeared. Why did the entire base fall silent the moment she opened her eyes? At first, there was nothing. No sound, no pain, no sense of time. Just a quiet so complete it didn't feel real. Then slowly, something shifted. A faint awareness. A distant hum. The kind of low, constant sound that exists in every medical room, machines, air, life continuing in small, measured ways. Maya's fingers twitched. Barely noticeable. But it was enough. The world didn't rush back in. It returned carefully. Like it wasn't sure she was ready for it. Her breathing came first. Slow. Shallow. But steady. Then the weight. Her body. Heavy. Unresponsive at first, like it belonged to someone else. Her eyelids felt the same. Too heavy. Too much effort. But she pushed anyway. Because that's what she had always done. Push. Even when everything said stop. A thin line of light broke through as her eyes opened just enough to let it in. Blurry. Unfocused. Shapes more than details. She blinked. Once. Twice. The room slowly took form. White walls. Soft light. Medical equipment surrounding her. Safe. She was safe. The realization didn't bring relief. It brought confusion. Because safety felt unfamiliar. Her head turned slightly. Every movement slow. Careful. Like her body was reminding her what it meant to exist again. And then, she saw them. At first, it didn't make sense. Too many figures. Too still. Too quiet. Lined up beyond the doorway. Rows. Perfectly straight. Unmoving. Her vision sharpened gradually. Details falling into place one by one. Uniforms. Boots. Faces. Marines. Dozens. No more than that. The hallway stretched further than she could fully see, and they filled it. Standing. Waiting. Silent. Maya's brow furrowed slightly. Her voice didn't come right away. When it did, it was barely there. What? No one answered. No one moved. And then she noticed it. Every single one of them was looking at her. Not casually. Not out of curiosity. But with something deeper. Something she hadn't expected. Respect. The kind that isn't given easily. The kind that isn't asked for. The kind that is earned. Confusion flickered through her expression. Because she didn't understand. Not fully. Not yet. A figure stepped forward slightly from the front. Olson. Of course. He didn't break posture completely. Didn't disrupt the line. but he shifted just enough to be seen. "You're awake," he said. Simple, steady, but there was something in his voice, something heavier than usual. Maya swallowed, her throat dry. "How long?" "Long enough," he replied. Not an exact answer, but it told her what mattered. She looked past him again. At the rose, at the stillness, at the silence. "Why are they here?" she asked, her voice still fragile. Olsen hesitated. Not because he didn't know, because he wanted to say it right. Finally, they wanted to be. That didn't clear anything. If anything, it deepened the question. Maya shifted slightly, trying to sit up. Pain flared through her shoulder immediately, sharp and real. Her body reminding her of everything she had pushed past. She winced. Olsen moved instinctively. "Easy," he said. "I'm fine," she whispered. The words came automatically. Reflex. Even now. Even here. Olsen didn't argue, but his expression said enough. Maya leaned back slightly, breath steadying again. Her eyes drifted once more to the line of Marines. Still there. Still silent. Still watching. And then, without a word, one of them moved. A sharp, precise motion. His hand rose. A salute. Clean. Deliberate. And then, another. And another. Until the entire line moved as one. 500 Marines. Standing in perfect stillness. Saluting her. Not because they were ordered to. Not because they had to. Because they chose to. The weight of it hit her all at once. Not loud. Not overwhelming. But deep. Settling somewhere inside her that had been empty for a long time. Her eyes widened slightly. Not in pride. Not in disbelief. In understanding. Because she finally saw it. Not what they were doing. Why they were doing it. Every life she had held together. Every moment she had refused to step back. Every second she had chosen others over herself. It had been seen. Even when she thought it hadn't. Even when no one said it. Even when she stood alone in it. It had mattered. Her throat tightened slightly. Not enough for tears. But enough to feel. Really feel. And for someone like her, that was rare. She lifted her hand slowly. Not to return the salute. Not formally. Just slightly. A small acknowledgement. Because that was who she was. Quiet. Measured. Unspoken. But real. The line held. No one broke. No one lowered their hand. The moment stretched. Timeless. Until finally, Olsen gave a small nod. And just like that, the salutes lowered. In perfect unison. The silence remained. But it felt different now. Full. Complete. Maya leaned back against the pillow, her body still weak, her mind still catching up. But something inside her had shifted. Not broken. Not overwhelmed. Balanced. For the first time in a long time. Because she realized something she had never allowed herself to before. She didn't have to carry everything alone. She never did. She just chose to. Her eyes closed again. Not from exhaustion. Not completely. From acceptance. From understanding. From finally allowing herself to rest. And in that quiet space, one thought settled gently into place. Courage doesn't always look like standing tall in the moment. Sometimes, it looks like falling, after you've already held everyone else up. And trusting that someone will be there when you do.